The Global Workspace Theory, the grand theater of consciousness. Right now, in this very moment, millions of actors are performing in the grand theater of your mind. The soft whisper of your breathing, the gentle weight of your blanket, a fleeting thought about tomorrow, and the distant ticking of a clock. These sensations are like performers vying for the spotlight of your consciousness. But only one can occupy center stage at any given time. This is the fascinating story of how your brain orchestrates the most intricate show on Earth, the performance of your conscious experience, an ongoing spectacle more complex than any Broadway production. Imagine having to direct a play where thousands of actors are auditioning simultaneously, but you can only select one to step into the spotlight at any moment. This is precisely what your brain does, and it does so with such precision that you've never even noticed the magnificent production unfolding behind your eyes. 40 years ago, the brilliant psychologist Bernard Bars peeked behind this mental curtain and discovered something extraordinary. Your consciousness isn't just a simple spotlight, it's an entire broadcasting system. When a thought or sensation wins the audition and steps into your awareness, it's like that actor's voice being projected to every corner of a vast amphitheater. Every member of the audience, from your memories to your emotions, from your logical reasoning to your deepest intuitions, receives the performance at the same time. Let's explore this remarkable theater with a scenario you've certainly encountered. Picture yourself driving home along a familiar route. Your conscious spotlight isn't focused on the act of driving itself. The driving processes are like well-rehearsed stagehands working efficiently in the background. But suddenly, a red ball bounces into the road. In an instant, this new actor takes the spotlight. The performance is broadcast throughout your mental theater. Your memory activates, reminding you that balls are often followed by running children. Your emotions trigger alertness, your motor systems prepare to brake, and your problem-solving areas calculate trajectories. All these responses happen in perfect synchronization, thanks to the global broadcast of that single moment of consciousness. But here's where the magic lies. Behind the main stage, in the shadows of your unconscious mind, countless other performances are ongoing. Your brain is constantly monitoring your body temperature, adjusting your posture, processing background sounds, and maintaining your breathing, all without requiring the main spotlight. These unconscious processes are like essential crew members in a theater, working tirelessly behind the scenes to keep the show running smoothly. The brilliance of global workspace theory lies in explaining why we need consciousness at all. Just as a theater coordinates hundreds of people through announcements over its speaker system, your consciousness broadcasts crucial information to multiple brain regions simultaneously. When you encounter something novel or important, it takes the spotlight, not because it's the only thing happening, but because it needs to be shared with the entire theater of your mind. Consider what happens when you're falling asleep. The auditions for your conscious spotlight begin to take surprising turns. Thoughts and sensations that wouldn't normally win the spotlight during wakefulness start to take center stage. The strict director of your attention gives way to dreaming, allowing unusual combinations of actors to perform together. This is why your thoughts become more fluid, more dreamlike, as you drift off. Your consciousness theater is transitioning from its daytime performance to its nighttime reverie. This theory also explains those strange moments when you drive home and suddenly realize you can't recall the journey. During these automated tasks, your conscious spotlight wasn't needed. The well-trained stagehands managed everything perfectly behind the scenes. But when something unexpected happens, the spotlight swings back into action, ready to broadcast important information to all corners of your mental theater. This broadcasting system is what makes human consciousness so remarkable. It allows us to combine different types of information, be creative, and solve complex problems. When Shakespeare wrote, "All the world's a stage," he didn't realize how literally true that was for our consciousness. Every moment of your awareness is indeed a carefully coordinated performance, where millions of potential actors await in the wings, but only the most relevant step into the spotlight. As you rest here, notice how your own mental theater functions. Watch how thoughts and sensations elegantly enter and exit the spotlight. Observe how some linger in the wings, while others demand your full attention. You're witnessing the most sophisticated broadcasting system known to science, your own consciousness performing its eternal dance of awareness in this grand theater of your mind. Every moment brings a new scene, every sensation a new possibility, and every thought a new performance. The most beautiful part? This magnificent, integrated information theory, the symphony of consciousness. Picture your mind as an expansive orchestra where billions of instruments come together in flawless harmony. Each note represents a thought, each melody embodies a memory, and each rhythm corresponds to a sensation. But what enables this magnificent concert of awareness to unfold? What allows your brain to craft such a rich and vivid experience of consciousness while a supercomputer, despite performing millions of calculations every second, remains eerily silent? The integrated information theory offers one of the most profound and ambitious explanations, aiming to decode the essence of consciousness itself. Developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi in the early 2000s, IIT doesn't simply inquire what consciousness is, it dares to quantify it mathematically, attempting to measure the very core of awareness. Imagine this moment right now. As you rest, your mind isn't just processing isolated sensations like the weight of your body against the bed, the gentle rhythm of your breath, or the soft texture of your pillow. Instead, all these elements seamlessly blend into one unified experience of awareness. According to IIT, consciousness isn't merely about having information. It's about how that information is integrated to form a cohesive, unified experience. Think about the difference between your brain and a mall's security camera system. While the camera system might have hundreds of feeds processing vast amounts of visual data, far more than you could handle, it doesn't possess consciousness. Why? Because each camera operates independently. It's like musicians playing in separate rooms, unable to influence one another. Your brain, however, is akin to an orchestra where each instrument's sound affects the others, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. IIT introduces the concept of phi, a mathematical measure of consciousness. Picture phi as the conductor who coordinates the orchestra. Just as a well-coordinated orchestra produces a stunning symphony, a higher phi value indicates a richer conscious experience. Your brain, with its billions of interconnected neurons, exhibits an extremely high phi value, generating the complex symphony of human consciousness. But here's where the theory takes an even more mind-boggling turn. IIT proposes that consciousness is not a simple binary state, like a light switch turning on and off. Instead, it exists on a spectrum, like a dimmer switch. Even a simple organism, such as a bee, may experience a faint form of consciousness, like a small chamber orchestra compared to our grand philharmonic. This concept raises profound questions. Could a houseplant possess a tiny spark of awareness? Could an advanced AI one day create its own unique symphony of consciousness? Let's dive deeper into how this integration forms your conscious experience. As you listen, your brain performs an extraordinary feat. It doesn't simply process words, emotions, and sensations as separate elements. Instead, everything merges. The words you hear may trigger memories. Those memories may evoke emotions. Those emotions could generate physical sensations, forming one fluid moment of experience. This is what sets IIT apart from other theories of consciousness. It doesn't just claim that consciousness arises from complex information processing. After all, your laptop does that. Instead, it argues that consciousness emerges from the way information is structured and integrated. It's not the sheer quantity of information that matters, but how it comes together to create meaning. Think about what happens when you begin to fall asleep. As your consciousness starts to fade, the integration within your brain loosens. Thoughts become less connected, and sensations drift apart. The tight orchestration of wakefulness begins to relax, which is why dreams often follow a strange, unpredictable logic. The conductor takes a break, allowing the orchestra to explore new, unfamiliar arrangements. The implications of it extend far beyond understanding human consciousness. If consciousness is a product of integrated information, it could exist in forms we've never imagined. IIT suggests that consciousness is not exclusive to biological brains. Any system that can integrate information in a sufficiently complex manner might possess its own form of awareness. This doesn't mean your smartphone is conscious; its components function too independently. But it does open the possibility for unexpected forms of consciousness to emerge. Consider a person in a deep coma. Traditional methods might show little to no brain activity, but IIT offers a framework for understanding whether there could still be islands of consciousness, small chamber groups, still playing music within the vast silence of the orchestra. This has profound implications for how we treat patients in altered states of consciousness, hinting at the possibility that there may be more awareness present than we can outwardly observe. As we explore this theory, you may wonder if we can create conscious AI. According to IT, the answer lies not in processing power or the amount of data, but in the integration of information. An AI wouldn't become conscious simply by handling more data or having more computational power. It would need to integrate information in a way that creates a unified, cohesive experience, much like our neural orchestra. This suggests that the path to creating conscious AI may be quite different from current methods of artificial intelligence development. IIT also provides insight into the nature of our own consciousness. Why do some experiences enter our awareness while others don't? IIT posits that it's the level of integration that determines which information enters our conscious experience. Highly integrated information becomes conscious, while isolated information remains unconscious. This explains why you can drive home on autopilot, unaware of every turn and stop, until something unusual catches your attention. Suddenly, that information becomes highly integrated with other processes in your brain, entering your conscious awareness. As you rest here, reflect on the remarkable integration happening in your mind right now. Every thought, sensation, and emotion is part of an immense, interconnected symphony of consciousness. Your awareness isn't just a collection of fragmented experiences, it's a masterpiece of integration where each element contributes to the whole. IIT reminds us that consciousness is not something we merely possess, it is something we are. It's the fundamental way our brain weaves all our experiences together into one seamless whole. As you drift towards sleep, observe how this integration gradually transforms. The rigid structure of wakefulness loosens, giving way to the more fluid and creative arrangements of dreams. Even while sleeping, your consciousness doesn't vanish, it shifts to a different kind of symphony. This is the beauty of integrated information theory. It doesn't just explain consciousness. It helps us appreciate the extraordinary complexity and beauty of our awareness. Every moment of consciousness is a miraculous feat of integration, a symphony of billions of neurons working in unison to create the music of your mind. As you rest, marvel at this incredible performance, the endless dance of integrated information that creates the unique symphony of your conscious experience. The brain's forecasting engine, a journey through predictive cognition. Imagine stepping into a completely unfamiliar city. Every detail, the buildings, the ambient noises, even how people move, is alien to you. Initially, you might feel lost as your brain doesn't yet possess a solid blueprint of this strange setting. However, as you wander its streets, observe its storefronts, and recognize certain landmarks, your mind starts forming expectations. On your next visit, the place won't feel as strange. Your brain will have assembled a cognitive roadmap, an anticipatory model that makes getting around simpler. This continuous refinement and adaptation of mental models captures the essence of what is known as predictive cognition. To fully grasp the impact of this concept, let's explore the science behind it. At the core of this approach is the idea of the Bayesian brain, a term rooted in Bayes' theorem, a principle used to adjust probability estimates based on newly acquired evidence. In neurological terms, this implies that the brain's forecasts aren't mere speculations. They're sophisticated, dynamic assessments blending previous knowledge with present sensory information. Take, for example, a hazy silhouette in the distance. Rather than passively waiting to identify it, your brain immediately begins forming hypotheses. Is it a person? an animal, or a peculiar object. These hypotheses are sharpened as more details emerge. Within the brain, neurons engage in tiered communication cycles. Higher-level brain regions dispatch predictions downward, while sensory inputs travel upward. When reality aligns with expectation, everything runs smoothly, conserving mental energy. But if there's a mismatch, called a prediction error, signals are fired upward, demanding that higher-level areas adjust the model. This feedback mechanism is so integral to thought that it governs everything from routine physical movements to intricate judgments. Picture sampling a meal for the first time. Suppose you're handed a bowl of soup, and its scent suggests it will be savory. But then it turns out to be sweet. That moment of dissonance is your brain flagging a prediction error. It quickly revises its understanding of the soup's taste. Repeated experiences eventually reduce these errors, making future encounters more predictable. Efficiency is another key trait of predictive cognition. Despite its small size, the brain consumes about 20% of the body's total energy. To conserve resources, it leans heavily on predictions, paying full attention only when necessary. For example, walking down a well-known street doesn't require noticing every detail. Your brain fills in the gaps, scanning only for irregularities like a sudden loud sound or a pothole. This selective attention helps you navigate a complex world without being overwhelmed. But the brain's forecasting isn't limited to the external world, it extends inward too. When recalling a memory, the brain doesn't access a perfect snapshot of the past. Instead, it reconstructs the memory by projecting what likely occurred, filling in blanks with plausible details. This makes memories fluid, changing with time and new insights. They are not fixed, but evolving, shaped by fresh data and altered assumptions. This predictive approach also affects our perception of time. Our sense of duration isn't based solely on objective reality, it's molded by mental expectations. When waiting for something exciting like a concert or a vacation, time can feel slow as the mind repeatedly anticipates the coming event. On the other hand, during repetitive or routine tasks, time often flies, since your brain efficiently processes these expected sequences almost on autopilot. The implications of predictive cognition extend far beyond solitary experiences. They influence how we engage socially. In a conversation, your brain doesn't only anticipate words, it also predicts tone, facial cues, and gestures. These forecasts make social exchanges fluid. When someone's response deviates, for instance, they scowl when you expect a smile, it creates a prediction error. Your brain then reassesses the situation, possibly prompting you to rethink your words or their emotional state. This mechanism might explain the strength of first impressions. Meeting someone new prompts your brain to form swift predictions about their character using surface details like their voice or appearance. These early impressions shape how you interpret their behavior later. If reality contradicts those assumptions, updating your mental model can be difficult. Your brain often clings to the original framework. One of the most intriguing aspects of predictive cognition is its relevance to altered states of awareness, like those achieved through meditation, psychedelics, or certain neurological conditions. Meditation, for instance, often involves watching thoughts and sensations without judgment, disrupting automatic predictions. This quieting of expectation can create a heightened sense of presence, where the line between self and surroundings fades. Likewise, substances like LSD or psilocybin seem to reduce the brain's top-down control, letting raw sensory input dominate. This may lead to intense visuals or the feeling of perceiving the world in its raw, unfiltered form. Although disorienting, such experiences provide powerful insights into how deeply our awareness is shaped by prediction. Cultural and societal factors also play a huge role in shaping mental forecasts. From childhood, we're immersed in cultural narratives that influence how we interpret the world. These stories shape how we view others, respond to events, and even judge beauty or ethics. For example, someone from a collectivist society might expect cooperation in social settings, whereas someone raised in an individualist culture might anticipate competition and assertiveness. These cultural templates influence behavior and interpretation, and they help explain differences in how people from various backgrounds interact. Zooming out further, predictive cognition may even shed light on biases like confirmation bias, the inclination to favor information that aligns with what we already believe, while dismissing conflicting evidence. From the perspective of predictive processing, this happens because the brain prefers models that minimize error. Challenging ingrained beliefs requires more effort and energy, so we're wired to stick with what already fits. Consider again the simple act of entering a coffee shop. You not only predict the smell of coffee and the sight of the counter, you also anticipate social expectations. You expect to wait your turn, say thank you, and follow unwritten rules. These unconscious forecasts help maintain social order. When someone disrupts them, say by cutting in line, it causes a prediction error, often triggering emotions like irritation or surprise. This seamless blending of sensory, emotional, and social expectations highlights the brain's intricate architecture. And yet, this complexity underscores a profound truth. Our experience of the world is never completely direct. Everything we perceive, think, or feel is filtered through layers of mental prediction, shaped by our memories, current context, and future projections. In that way, predictive cognition calls into question the idea of pure objectivity. It doesn't mean reality is entirely subjective, but rather that our connection to it is always mediated. Ultimately, predictive cognition offers a powerful lens for understanding consciousness. It redefines the brain not as a passive receiver, but as an active architect, continuously building and revising our reality. Whether catching a falling object, interpreting someone's expression, revisiting a childhood memory, or envisioning the future, the brain's predictions are the silent scaffolding of our lives. In this constant dance between what we expect and what unfolds, uncertainty is never fully eliminated. But through this haze, our minds chart a path, adapt, and flourish, transforming the noisy world of sensation into a coherent stream of experience, one forecast at a time. Decoding consciousness. Have you ever stopped to think about how your smartphone seems almost sentient? How it reacts to your touch, deciphers your inputs, and effortlessly converts signals into coherent responses? Now, picture something far more intricate, your own awareness. The information processing theory of consciousness posits that our conscious awareness might function in ways strikingly similar to digital systems, transforming raw sensory input into the vivid tapestry of human experience. At its core, this theory asserts that consciousness arises from how our brains handle, synthesize, and manage information. Just like a computer decodes binary code to present pictures, videos, and text, the brain converts neural impulses into our perception of reality. This concept, advanced by researchers such as Giulio Tononi and Christoph Koch, argues that consciousness is not a mystical energy, but an advanced method of information processing. Let's understand this with a relatable analogy. Imagine yourself inside a majestic concert hall, immersed in a live symphony. According to this theory, your conscious perception isn't simply about the sound waves reaching your ears. It's about your brain actively decoding and merging numerous data streams, tone, rhythm, and timbre from each instrument, the spatial awareness of sound locations, your emotional reactions, past memories of similar music, and much more, into one harmonized conscious event. According to the theory, consciousness emerges when data is handled in two essential ways: integration and differentiation. First, the brain must fuse different elements into a unified whole. For instance, when you perceive a rose, your brain brings together its color, shape, position, smell, and the knowledge that it's a rose, producing a complete conscious impression of the flower. But simply integrating data isn't enough. The information must also be differentiated, meaning the system must be able to occupy a vast number of unique states. Human consciousness can assume billions of configurations, each aligned with a distinct experience. This diversity is what enables us to notice subtle color variations, recognize numerous faces, and feel a seemingly infinite range of emotions. One of the theory's most intriguing features is its explanation for the unity of consciousness. Why do we perceive the world as a seamless whole rather than disjointed fragments? The theory suggests that the brain constructs what scientists term an integrated information space, a mathematical realm where all incoming and processed information merges to form a single stream of awareness. Think about drinking a cup of coffee. Your brain is simultaneously evaluating its visual look, the warmth you feel, the scent, the taste, past experiences with coffee, and general knowledge about it. This constant synchronization results in a singular conscious moment, sipping coffee. It all happens effortlessly, leading to what philosophers refer to as the phenomenal unity of experience. This model also clarifies why certain brain processes remain subconscious while others enter conscious awareness. Imagine your brain as a massive corporate office. Just as a CEO isn't aware of every tiny task being handled within the company, your consciousness doesn't need access to every detail being processed by your brain. Only data that is sufficiently integrated and varied breaks through to awareness. This selective awareness has a functional role. The brain processes vast amounts of information every moment, regulating your heart rate, keeping you balanced, and staying alert to your environment. If every bit of that input became conscious, you'd be overwhelmed. Instead, your brain crafts a streamlined, integrated version of the most crucial information for your awareness. Modern research offers strong backing for this framework. Scientists have created mathematical tools to measure the integration of information in neural networks, helping them predict whether a system could be conscious. These metrics, like Tononi's phi-phi value, measure the level of integrated data, potentially offering a mathematical explanation for consciousness itself. The theory's implications stretch far beyond neuroscience. In medicine, it's helping to identify and treat disorders of consciousness. In it's shaping how we design machines that might eventually become conscious. And in philosophy, it's reshaping centuries-old debates about the essence and origins of awareness. So far, we've explored how consciousness could emerge from brain-based information processing, how it produces unified experiences, and why some data becomes conscious while other data remains hidden. But this is merely the start. As we journey further into this model, we uncover explanations for some of consciousness's most perplexing traits and what these revelations mean for human experience, artificial intelligence, and future consciousness research. One particularly captivating idea is recursive processing. Imagine standing between two mirrors, witnessing endless reflections. Similarly, our minds can reflect on their own processes, thinking about thoughts, being aware of awareness, and analyzing the way they process information. This capability gives rise to what scientists term metaconsciousness, awareness of one's own mental states. Recall a moment when you were lost in thought, perhaps daydreaming, and then suddenly realized you were daydreaming. That instant of realization is metaconsciousness in action. According to this theory, it occurs because the brain constructs higher-level data structures that represent and evaluate your conscious states. Think of it like a mental surveillance system, monitoring your own awareness. But what governs which data becomes conscious? Researchers propose the concept of attention schemas, advanced filtering systems that decide what content reaches awareness. Imagine an editorial team inside your brain, selecting which stories appear on the front page of your consciousness, while others are archived out of sight. The theory also offers a deeper understanding of how consciousness and memory relate. When we remember, we aren't just retrieving data, we're reactivating a pattern of information processing much like the original moment. That's why memories can feel vividly conscious. They recreate the same neural dynamics as the initial experience, akin to reopening and running an old software program. Recent findings suggest that conscious processing happens in rhythmic bursts, about 40 times per second. These brain rhythms, around 40 Hz, are referred to as the cognitive rhythms of consciousness. It's as if your brain takes 40 mini snapshots every second and strings them together into the fluid stream of awareness that you experience. This theory also helps decode altered states of consciousness. During deep meditation, individuals often report a state of pure awareness without any specific content. The theory explains this as the brain sustaining high integration while limiting differentiation, producing a stable yet content-free conscious state. One particularly intriguing area of application is dreaming. In REM sleep, your brain generates highly integrated and differentiated activity, explaining why dreams can feel real while happening. However, the structure of this processing is different, which gives dreams their strange logic and distinct feeling compared to waking consciousness. The model also sheds light on how prediction shapes awareness. Your brain isn't just dealing with current inputs, it's constantly forecasting what will happen next. These predictions form what's called a generative model of reality. When you reach for a mug, your consciousness includes current input and expected sensations like the mug's weight or texture. This predictive feature is key to understanding how we perceive time. Your perception of the present is more than just what's happening now. It's a fusion of present sensory data, immediate past memories, and near-future predictions. All of these combine to form the illusion of a continuous now. The information processing theory also revolutionizes how we understand emotional awareness. Emotions aren't merely sensations. They're intricate patterns of integrated information involving body signals, thoughts, behavioral urges, and subjective feelings. That's why emotions feel so layered and deeply personal. Looking ahead, this model offers critical insights into artificial consciousness. It suggests that crafting truly conscious machines requires more than just power or complex algorithms. It requires systems capable of integrating data in very specific ways. Conscious AI, then, may need a structure entirely different from what we use today. This theory also raises profound existential questions. If consciousness is rooted in information processing, could the universe itself be viewed as one vast information processor? Some scientists even speculate that information might be as fundamental to existence as matter and energy. As we end our deep dive into the information processing theory, we're left with newfound admiration for the remarkable complexity of awareness. Consciousness isn't a passive witness to the world, it's a dynamic, ongoing orchestration of data that forms our reality second by second. Understanding consciousness through this lens doesn't strip it of mystery, it deepens our appreciation of its incredible intricacy. The theory gives us a compelling way to grasp how the brain takes the raw input of the universe and shapes it into the vivid, meaningful story we live each day. Rather than some magical essence, consciousness may very well be the most advanced information processing system we've ever encountered, transforming endless sensory cues, memories, emotions, and thoughts into a unified awareness of what it means to be alive, to be sentient, to simply be. The consciousness-centered universe. The theory of consciousness-centered existence is a groundbreaking perspective that questions the conventional materialist outlook on the cosmos. This concept was introduced by Dr. Robert Lanza, a distinguished American researcher and author. According to this framework, life and awareness are not secondary results of the physical universe, but are, in fact, the essential elements responsible for forming reality. This paradigm radically alters the traditional interpretation of the cosmos, asserting that existence itself is a consequence of life and consciousness, not the reverse. The origin of this idea lies in Dr. Lanza's in-depth work across biology and regenerative science. Over the span of his scientific journey, Lanza has delved deeply into the enigmas of existence, particularly focusing on how life mechanisms seem to surpass the constraints of the physical domain. The consciousness-centered theory emerged as a fusion of his biological insight and a strong curiosity about the essence of awareness, giving rise to a unified model of understanding. At its heart, This theory claims that the universe cannot be comprehensively explained without accounting for the influence of living beings and their consciousness. According to this model, dimensions like space and time do not exist as standalone absolutes. Instead, they manifest as constructs derived from the way conscious organisms observe and engage with their surroundings. This notion reflects the age-old philosophical idea that reality is shaped by the mind, an idea that has fascinated philosophers for generations and is now being re-evaluated through the lens of modern scientific progress. A central pillar of this theory is the belief that awareness is the principal force that brings the universe into being. In simpler terms, the cosmos does not exist in a fully established form on its own. It is actualized through the process of observation. This contradicts the classical viewpoint of a reality that persists regardless of perception. In the consciousness-centered model, observation causes the collapse of the quantum wave of potential into a definite reality. In the absence of an observer, there is no concrete existence, only a range of possible outcomes waiting to manifest. This theory draws from foundational concepts in quantum physics to bolster its claims. Quantum physics, the area of science that explores the actions of particles on the tiniest levels, has long held that measurement or observation plays a decisive role in determining a system's behavior. For example, experiments like the double-slit test have demonstrated that subatomic particles alter their behavior depending on whether or not they're being monitored, suggesting that consciousness has a real effect on material outcomes. Lanza advances this premise further by proposing that awareness isn't merely an influencing factor, it is the essential source of all reality. He contends that life is the generator of the universe, not its byproduct. This view is groundbreaking and has sparked significant controversy, mainly because it opposes the materialist ideology that has dominated scientific thought for hundreds of years. If this theory proves valid, it would necessitate a complete reassessment of how we understand the universe, from atomic particles to intergalactic space, based on the primacy of living systems and conscious experience. As we investigate this perspective more deeply, we'll analyze the scientific foundation behind it, including how it redefines our notions of space, time, and the cosmos through the filter of awareness. Additionally, we'll examine the philosophical consequences of this approach, especially how it transforms our conception of reality and our own position in the universe. Building on that basis, let's now look at the scientific structure supporting this theory, evaluating how it reinterprets the concepts of space, time, and cosmic existence through the framework of conscious experience. This theory disputes the long-standing belief in a detached, objective reality by arguing that space and time are not autonomous constants, but are the results of conscious awareness. Among its most striking assertions is that space and time are not the fixed, unchangeable dimensions we usually consider them to be. Instead, they only exist within the scope of a sentient observer. In this view, the universe resembles a blank canvas, with awareness painting the scenery, shaping space and time into tangible forms. Without life and conscious minds, these dimensions would have no relevance or essence. Their existence is intimately linked to our sensory and mental faculties. This concept aligns with some interpretations of quantum physics, which propose that reality isn't as rigid or static as it appears. In quantum theory, particles exist in a probabilistic state, a combination of multiple potential outcomes, until an act of observation takes place. Observation itself collapses this cloud of probabilities into a single, definitive state. This effect is clearly observed in trials like the famous double-slit experiment, where particles exhibit different behaviors depending on whether they are being watched. The consciousness-centered theory extends this insight by suggesting that the entire universe responds in such a way, not only particles on the microscopic level. At the quantum scale and across all levels of reality, the theory posits that just as particles necessitate an observer to establish their state, the universe relies on consciousness to provide it with structure and reality. According to this perspective, the universe is not a vast, pre-existing entity where life randomly arises. Rather, it comes into existence through the interaction between consciousness and the potentiality of space and time. The relationship between consciousness and the physical realm is central to biocentrism. This theory suggests that consciousness does not emerge from physical processes within the brain, as traditional neuroscience contends. Instead, consciousness is the fundamental reality, and the material world is merely an expression of this consciousness. This idea directly challenges the materialistic view, which holds that the brain generates consciousness, proposing instead that the brain functions as a receptor or a conduit for consciousness, similar to how a television set receives signals and converts them into images and sounds. This paradigm shift has far-reaching consequences for our understanding of the cosmos and our position within it. If consciousness is indeed foundational, then the physical world, space and time, is secondary, acting as a stage on which the drama of life unfolds. This notion contradicts the conventional scientific perspective, which sees the universe as a vast, empty void governed by the laws of physics, where life is considered a rare and incidental event. Biocentrism also presents a novel approach to understanding the origins of the universe. According to the standard Big Bang theory, the universe originated from a singularity, a point of infinite density and temperature that expanded to create the cosmos we observe today. However, biocentrism asserts that the universe did not originate in the traditional sense. Instead, it arose in parallel with consciousness, suggesting that the universe and consciousness co-evolved, each influencing and defining the other. Quantum mechanics plays an essential role in supporting the claims of biocentrism. The theory draws upon the principle of quantum entanglement, where particles become linked and can instantaneously affect each other, regardless of the distance separating them. This phenomenon supports the idea that consciousness is intertwined with the very fabric of reality, surpassing traditional physical explanations. The interconnectedness implied by quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness is not confined to individual organisms, but is an integral aspect of the universe's structure. As we continue to explore biocentrism, the next section will delve into its philosophical consequences, particularly how it redefines concepts such as life, death, and the nature of reality. We will also investigate the criticisms and challenges biocentrism faces within the scientific community. Biocentrism, with its bold proposition that life and consciousness are essential to the universe's existence, carries profound philosophical implications. This theory challenges conventional views of reality, offering a perspective that places consciousness at the core of existence. It invites us to reconsider the nature of life, death, and the universe itself. One of the most fascinating aspects of biocentrism is its redefinition of life and death. In the traditional materialistic worldview, death signifies the end of consciousness. The cessation of brain function equates to the end of the mind. However, biocentrism posits that consciousness is not confined to the physical body. Since consciousness is integral to the fabric of reality, it does not simply vanish when the body dies. Instead, consciousness could persist in some form independent of the physical body. This concept aligns with certain spiritual and philosophical traditions that view consciousness as eternal, suggesting that life and death are not absolute states but part of an ongoing process. It also challenges how we perceive time. If consciousness is not limited to the physical brain, then our experience of time may be illusory. In the biocentric view, time is not a linear progression from past to future, but rather a construct formed by consciousness. This implies that past, present, and future may all coexist simultaneously, with our perception of time being a mechanism through which consciousness organizes experiences. This notion is in harmony with Einstein's theory of relativity, which asserts that time is relative and can change depending on the observer's perspective. Another significant philosophical consequence of biocentrism is the idea that the universe is participatory. According to this theory, the universe does not exist as a fully formed entity independent of observers. Instead, it is shaped and brought into existence through the act of observation. This participatory aspect implies that reality is not a static, objective truth, but rather a dynamic and fluid experience shaped by the consciousness of those perceiving it. This stands in stark contrast to the traditional view of an objective reality that exists outside the realm of life and consciousness. Biocentrism also prompts us to rethink the nature of existence itself. If consciousness is the foundation of reality, then what we perceive as the physical world may be more akin to a virtual reality, an experience generated by consciousness, rather than a fixed material structure. This idea finds parallels in various philosophical and spiritual traditions, such as the concept of Maya in Hinduism, which sees the physical world as an illusion, or in the modern simulation hypothesis, which suggests that our reality could be a complex simulation. Nevertheless, biocentrism is not without its critics. One of the primary challenges to this theory is its departure from the materialist framework, which has underpinned scientific inquiry for centuries. Critics argue that biocentrism lacks empirical evidence and relies too heavily on philosophical conjecture. They point out that while quantum mechanics implies a connection between observation and reality, extending this to claim that consciousness generates the universe is a considerable leap that has not been substantiated by empirical research. Another criticism is that biocentrism might be seen as anthropocentric, placing human consciousness at the center of the universe. Although the theory suggests that all life is central to the existence of the universe, its focus on consciousness could be interpreted as elevating human experience above all else. Critics argue that this perspective may overlook the vast complexity of the universe and the possibility that life and consciousness, as we understand them, may be mere fragments of a much grander, incomprehensible reality. Despite these criticisms, biocentrism continues to captivate and inspire those who feel constrained by the limitations of the materialist worldview. It presents a vision of the universe that is deeply interconnected, where life and consciousness are not random accidents of evolution, but fundamental to the structure of reality. This perspective encourages us to explore the cosmos, not as a mere collection of matter and energy, but as a living, conscious entity to which we are intimately connected. As we investigate the cultural and ethical implications of biocentrism, we will explore how this theory influences our perspectives on the environment, spirituality, and the meaning of life. Biocentrism challenges us to reflect deeply on our relationship with the universe and the role of consciousness in shaping reality. Biocentrism transcends scientific and philosophical boundaries, impacting our cultural, ethical, and spiritual viewpoints. By placing life and consciousness at the heart of existence, it offers a transformative way of understanding our connection to the universe, nature, and one another. One of biocentrism's most profound cultural impacts lies in its potential to reshape our attitudes toward the environment. Traditional materialist views often treat nature as a set of resources to be exploited for human gain. In contrast, biocentrism advocates for a more holistic approach where the natural world is seen as an essential part of a conscious, interconnected universe. This perspective suggests that every living entity plays a pivotal role in shaping reality and that the health of the planet is directly tied to the well-being of all life forms. By recognizing the intrinsic value of all life, biocentrism promotes a more ethical and sustainable approach to environmental stewardship. This shift in perspective also holds significant ethical consequences. If life and consciousness are fundamental to the universe, then every form of life possesses an inherent value that deserves respect and care. This challenges us to reconsider how we interact with other living beings, whether animals, plants, or entire ecosystems. Biocentrism posits that harming the environment or other life forms is not simply a moral failure, but a disruption of the very fabric of reality. This viewpoint encourages us to adopt more compassionate and responsible behaviors, recognizing our interconnectedness with all forms of life. Biocentrism also resonates with many spiritual and religious teachings that emphasize the unity of all existence. By proposing that consciousness underlies reality, biocentrism aligns with concepts found in Eastern philosophies, such as Buddhism's interconnectedness of all things, or Hinduism's view of Brahman as the universal consciousness that manifests the universe. These parallels suggest that science and spirituality may be converging toward a deeper understanding of reality. Additionally, biocentrism challenges the notion of human exceptionalism by arguing that all life is essential to the universe. This challenges the anthropocentric view that has prevailed in much of Western thought, encouraging a more egalitarian approach to our relationship with other species and the planet. This perspective could inspire new ethical frameworks that prioritize the well-being of all life forms over human interests. Moreover, biocentrism offers a fresh approach to the meaning of life. In a materialist worldview, meaning is often seen as something humans create in an indifferent universe. In contrast, biocentrism suggests that meaning is not an artificial construct, but an inherent aspect of a conscious universe. This view provides a more optimistic outlook on existence, where life is not a random accident, but an integral part of the universe's design. This can offer a deeper sense of purpose and connection as we recognize our roles in the ongoing creation of reality. The potential future of biocentrism is vast and multifaceted. As more researchers and thinkers explore this theory, we may see developments that further integrate biocentrism with other scientific and philosophical frameworks. For example, advances in neuroscience could provide more insights into the connection between consciousness and the material world, offering empirical support for biocentric ideas. Similarly, as our understanding of quantum mechanics progresses, we might uncover more evidence that reinforces the central role of consciousness in shaping reality. In the realm of technology, biocentrism could influence the development of artificial intelligence and virtual reality. If consciousness is indeed fundamental to the universe, creating conscious machines or virtual environments could have profound ethical and philosophical ramifications. These technologies could allow us to explore new dimensions of consciousness and existence, expanding our understanding of reality. As we continue to explore these ideas, it is clear that biocentrism presents a bold and transformative vision of the universe. By placing life and consciousness at the core of reality, it challenges us to rethink our place in the cosmos and adopt a more ethical, compassionate, and interconnected approach to life. Whether or not biocentrism is ultimately proven correct, it provides a compelling framework for investigating the mysteries of existence and our role within it. Panpsychism, derived from two Greek terms, pan, meaning all, and psyche, signifying soul or mind, suggests that consciousness is a universal trait, existing even in the smallest particles. Unlike materialism, which asserts that consciousness arises solely from complex biological systems like the human brain, Panpsychism argues that consciousness is intrinsic to all aspects of reality. The roots of Panpsychism trace back to ancient philosophy. Early Greek thinkers, such as Thales of Miletus, believed that everything in nature had some form of life or consciousness. Thales famously proposed that everything is full of gods, implying that all things possess a form of inner life or awareness. This early version of Panpsychism reflected a worldview where the cosmos was perceived as interconnected and alive. As philosophy progressed, the idea that consciousness could be a fundamental element of reality persisted in various forms. During the Renaissance, Giordano Bruno proposed that the universe was infinite, filled with living beings, stars, planets, each possessing its own consciousness. His ideas were considered heretical at the time and led to his persecution, yet they marked a significant moment in thinking about the cosmos and consciousness. In modern times, Panpsychism has seen a resurgence, particularly among philosophers and scientists dissatisfied with traditional explanations of consciousness. One prominent advocate is philosopher Galen Strawson, who argues that consciousness cannot simply emerge from non-conscious matter. He posits that consciousness must be a fundamental characteristic of reality, present in all things to varying degrees. Strawson's views challenge the materialist perspective, the prevailing notion in contemporary science, which attempts to explain everything, including consciousness, through physical processes. However, materialism often struggles to explain subjective experience, the qualitative essence of consciousness known as qualia. Panpsychism offers an alternative by proposing that consciousness is not an outcome of physical processes but an essential feature of reality akin to space, time, and matter. This perspective opens intriguing possibilities for understanding consciousness. If consciousness is inherent in all matter, it may not be something the brain creates, but rather something the brain organizes and enhances. This concept suggests a continuity of consciousness from the simplest particles to the most complex organisms, with the complexity of consciousness increasing as the complexity of the system grows. Panpsychism invites us to reconsider what it means to be conscious. It suggests that the universe is filled with diverse forms of awareness, many of which are too simple or too distinct from our own to recognize. This viewpoint challenges the conventional boundaries we draw between the living and non-living, the conscious and unconscious, offering a more interconnected and dynamic view of reality. As we explore Panpsychism further, we realize it offers a unique perspective on the relationship between mind and matter. While traditional theories treat consciousness as a byproduct of complex systems like the human brain, Panpsychism asserts that consciousness is intrinsic to all matter. One central tenet of Panpsychism is that consciousness exists on a spectrum. At one end are highly complex systems, like the human brain, which generate rich and intricate forms of consciousness. At the other end are the most fundamental particles of matter, which may possess basic forms of consciousness. This does not imply that atoms have thoughts or emotions, but rather that they have a rudimentary awareness. This view addresses a significant challenge in the philosophy of mind, the hard problem of consciousness. Philosopher David Chalmers coined this term to describe the difficulty of explaining why and how physical brain processes give rise to subjective experience. Materialist explanations often fall short because they cannot adequately account for the qualitative aspects of consciousness, what it's like to be conscious. Panpsychism offers an alternative by suggesting that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter. It proposes that subjective experience does not need to be created by the brain, but that the brain may act as a complex structure that organizes and integrates the basic consciousness inherent in its components. From this perspective, consciousness is not an emergent property that arises from specific configurations of matter, but a fundamental feature that always exists, manifesting in more complex forms in more intricate systems. If consciousness is indeed fundamental, everything in the universe, from rocks to stars, could possess some form of awareness, however minimal. The difference between human consciousness and the consciousness of a rock would then be a difference of degree, not kind. Human consciousness is highly integrated, capable of complex thoughts, emotions, and self-awareness, while a rock's consciousness might be so simple that it's nearly imperceptible to us. This notion resonates with certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, where particles show behaviors that suggest a form of agency or choice. Some theorists speculate that these behaviors may indicate a rudimentary form of consciousness present in all matter. Though speculative, this idea opens exciting possibilities for how we might understand the universe. Panpsychism also challenges us to rethink our ethical and environmental responsibilities. If all matter possesses some form of consciousness, our interactions with the world around us may need to be reconsidered. This view could foster a deeper respect for all forms of existence, promoting a more harmonious relationship with nature. Moreover, Panpsychism pushes us to reevaluate the nature of consciousness itself, not just as a phenomenon emerging in complex systems, but as an intrinsic aspect of reality that may exist in forms entirely different from our own. For example, while we experience consciousness as a stream of thoughts, emotions, and sensory perceptions, the consciousness of a single atom could be a subtle, almost imperceptible flicker of awareness so foreign to us that it is incomprehensible. If Panpsychism is correct, consciousness may manifest in countless ways, some of which may be beyond our understanding. The universe itself might possess consciousness in a form we cannot currently grasp, or cosmic structures like galaxies and black holes might exhibit a kind of awareness beyond our comprehension. One of the most radical implications of Panpsychism is the possibility that the entire universe could be a single, vast conscious entity. This idea echoes certain ancient philosophical and spiritual traditions that view the cosmos as a living being with its own mind and purpose. In modern times, it aligns with the Gaia hypothesis, which suggests that Earth functions as a living organism maintaining conditions conducive to life. Panpsychism, however, expands this idea, proposing that Earth's consciousness is just a part of a much larger universal mind. Panpsychism also invites us to reconsider the nature of consciousness itself. While traditional views suggest that consciousness emerged during the evolutionary process, Panpsychism presents a different narrative, one where consciousness has always been a fundamental aspect of the universe. This perspective suggests that consciousness didn't suddenly appear. Instead, it has been present since the beginning of time. The evolution of life on Earth could then be seen as the increasing complexity and integration of this ever-present consciousness. Consciousness is not something organisms acquire, but rather something they develop and express in more sophisticated forms. Simple organisms may exhibit basic awareness, like responding to light or heat, while more complex organisms, like humans, have evolved to experience a rich, multifaceted form of consciousness. This view raises intriguing questions about the future evolution of consciousness. If consciousness continues to evolve, what might it look like in the future? Could new forms of consciousness, perhaps biological or artificial, emerge that differ from human consciousness in the same way human consciousness differs from that of simpler organisms? Panpsychism encourages us to think about the future of consciousness, including the potential for advanced, even non-biological forms of awareness, such as those that may arise in artificial intelligence or post-human evolution. Panpsychism also asks us to consider how consciousness might function in different environments. Could consciousness take on different forms in other parts of the universe, under conditions far removed from those on Earth? This notion suggests that consciousness could adapt to different planets, stars, or galaxies, manifesting in ways we cannot yet imagine. Moreover, Panpsychism suggests that consciousness might not be confined to individual entities but could also exist collectively. Just as neurons in the brain work together to create a unified consciousness, individual consciousnesses could combine to form a collective or shared awareness. This idea resonates with certain interpretations of collective intelligence, where groups of individuals or ecosystems act in ways that hint at a form of collective consciousness. These concepts challenge our conventional ideas about individuality and separation, proposing instead that consciousness might be more interconnected than we have realized. If consciousness is indeed a fundamental property of the universe, it might transcend the boundaries we typically draw between self and other, individual and collective, human and non-human. This perspective also encourages a re-examination of spiritual and mystical experiences. Throughout history, people have described moments of unity with the universe where they felt deeply connected to all existence. Panpsychism provides a philosophical framework that could help explain such experiences, suggesting that they might be glimpses into the deeper, interconnected nature of consciousness that underlies all of existence. In conclusion, Panpsychism offers a revolutionary rethinking of consciousness, one that challenges the boundaries of science, philosophy, and spirituality. Although still speculative and controversial, this theory invites us to explore new ways of understanding the universe and our place within it. By proposing that consciousness is not a rare phenomenon, but an inherent feature of all matter, Panpsychism encourages us to view the universe as a vibrant, interconnected web of awareness, full of potential and mystery.